Well, we're living through a time of a number of series of remarkable experiments on how we govern ourselves, and one of the most interesting is, can we make our military more lethal, not by adding to it, but by taking away from it? Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this Right Angle is brought to you by our members at BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, here's a picture for you. This is the Assembly of Generals that was called by Pete Hegseth, and they look like a bunch of wet hens. They look like a series of extremely distinguished men who just sat down in something wet. They don't look happy at all, and I suppose they've got plenty of reasons not to look happy. Donald Trump's made some remarks, which I frankly think he shouldn't have made. I think Donald Trump should have simply not gone to that meeting, sat in the White House and said, I have a Secretary of Defense. He's consulted me about what he wants to do, and he's doing it. It's his show, and he knows what he's doing. But in any event, for those of you who haven't been following, Pete Hegseth basically went through the ranks of virtually every flag officer in the armed forces of the United States and kind of read them the riot act. He did it somewhat tactfully, but enthusiastically. And among the many things that he talked about was the idea that officers of any rank have to be able to pass the physical fitness requirements of the armed forces. And if I remember his exact quote, it's like, guys, when something to the effect of, when privates and enlisted men see fat generals, it's just not a good look. And he's absolutely right. Scott, these generals did not look happy at all, and I can understand why. They're virtually every one of them was senior in rank to what Pete Hegseth was before he became Defense Secretary. Many of them have dedicated the second part of their careers to life in the Pentagon and managing these enormous projects. And here comes this young firebrand whippersnapper, telling them they need to get into shape and so on. And because I try to be intellectually honest about things, I looked at the reaction of this room full of generals that you just saw, and I thought to myself, what if these guys are right? Okay, there's a tremendous amount of military experience in there, an amazing amount. Pete Hegseth has been criticized for being a kind of a loose cannon and wild drinker and all the rest of it. And I asked myself, what if the look on these generals' faces is correct? Is he coming in to destroy this greatest military? But then I go back to the fact that long before Donald Trump won in 2024, I've been saying for years that the Pentagon needs to be turned into a massive roller skating rink and dispersed, and the temple and the priesthood must be destroyed. And I think that a military that was much, much leaner in time of war has become way too top heavy. And I think what I really saw in those faces was guys who were not so much afraid of the requirements that he was stating, so much as thinking that their cushy ride to a defense contractor salary is in danger.
And this is not to imply that all of these guys are like this. I mean, there was something like 800 flag officers in this meeting, and these are just the top guys. When you go for a long, long time with a military that's not engaged in a world war, for example, you've got to have a way to promote up good performers and give them more responsibility. However, when the responsibility results in basically a desk job and decades between that and any kind of battlefield assignment, it's not a good look for any military, as Pete would say. I like how he was concerned about the appearance of some in the Navy that were being allowed to grow facial hair of late, and he said that they wanted no more beardos.
He did. He said that.
So here's the thing. We tell, and these generals and admirals will tell new recruits that the discipline of developing physically fit bodies is important, primarily because it reflects a discipline that's going to be necessary in your lifelong performance in your job. Not only in battlefield assignments where you're going to have to be sharp and fit and ready at all times, but just the pattern of life required to develop a good diet, good exercise, and good physical fitness redounds to the benefit of many other areas of your life. It makes you a better executive, even if you're sitting at a desk. It makes you better in many ways to do what you're called to do. And so I think Pete Hegseth was doing a favor
I do too.
for a lot of guys who probably in their heart of hearts, I mean, how many of us have been there? Just 9 months ago, 10 months ago, I was 56 pounds more than I weigh now. And do you think there was ever a moment when I looked in the mirror and went, looking good, buddy? No, you feel horrible about yourself. And so you're like, oh, I got to do something about this. And you keep making excuses of why you didn't do anything about it. And then something changes. And you have to do something about it. And in this case, it's when the defense secretary says, okay, boys, and I know this isn't good for anybody. It's not good for you. It's not good for your spouse who's going to lose you to an early death. And it's not good for the soldiers under you who look to you for leadership. And when they see a fit, well-formed man step out onto that parade ground, even if he never gets near a battlefield, they look at him and they say, I want to be like that general when I grow up. And that's your role, is to lead men.
Well, Steve, you went to a military academy. Most of us, the closest we get to the actual military is what we see in movies. So let's talk a little bit of movies here. During the Biden administration, I saw a number of videos that had Marine drill instructors who had paunches. They were chubby.
Wow.
A Marine drill instructor coming out with a gut is not a pretty sight. So let's talk about movies. I don't know how old Arlie Ermy was when he did Full Metal Jacket, but he certainly was in his 40s. And when he first walks out there, his stomach is flat as a board. He looks like he's got a 28-inch waist.
Straight, shoulders back.
Exactly, 28-inch waist. Absolutely peak physical fitness. You see all these guys running, these 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and they're completely winded, and this 45-year-old guy is just charging past them. And my entire point in bringing this up is you can't take young, soft people and try to make them into tough, hard men if the guy who's doing the leading looks like he ate a jelly donut while the lights were off in the barracks, right? It just doesn't work. You have to be the example. You have to set the example that you want these recruits to aspire to. And if you can't do that, then why would anybody possibly follow you in such a rigorous process?
I saw Full Metal Jacket on the big screen. Came out in '86, I believe. I was a senior in high school, or about to start my senior year of high school, and I took the exact wrong message away from that movie. I didn't take Kubrick's anti-war message. I took Arlie Ermy.
Me too. I thought I want to be like him.
I want to go to a recruiting center right now.
Yeah,
it's just he was that inspiring, and I did take something away from that. Back when both my boys were little, my wife liked to go to work really early so she could get home early and do all the mom dinner afternoon stuff with the boys. So I took the mornings, and one thing I made sure of is that before I went to wake them up out of their bunk beds and get them ready for school, I was showered, shaved, wearing a pressed shirt and a pair of pressed trousers, and setting that I'm ready to go example. You got to get ready to go too. And I think that helped make a difference. At least I thought it did. But Bill, there's something I've got to share with you. I can't believe I didn't think to send this to you earlier in the week. On Monday, the day before Hegseth had the big meeting with all those stars in the room, somebody at my other job at PJ Media posted a fake agenda for the meeting, and I got to share. I got to share this with you. 0930, height and weight measurements, 1,000 hours, Sec War motivational speech, consisting of lethality, Trump, dealing with minorities and women, alcoholism, is it that big a deal? Media, bunch of fags. It just goes on like that, including, 1530, female generals and admirals excused so men can talk. And then it finishes up with that 1730, steak, whiskey, and cigars accompanied by motivational musings by Sec War. And the thing is, this is pretend. It's over the top, but that's part of the thing. The military is supposed to be testosterone based. You got to go out there and kill people and break things. This is hoorah stuff. It's not the guy in the bondage mask for his official portrait like we had under Biden. This is not how you have a functional military, and I think we've seen that over the last 20 years of wars we haven't won, 50 years of wars we haven't won. But the point is this: for all of those scowling admirals and generals sitting in their chairs, what do you think civilian control of the military means?
Precisely.
The American people said this isn't working, and we elected new civilian leadership to change things. There you go.
I had a friend of mine who was a helicopter pilot in the Army, and this was back when I was still looking forward to joining the Air Force. And he had just gotten accepted into the Army, and he said, ever since we've had an Air Force, we've never won a war. And I thought,
Damn.
I thought that was cold. But what you can say, I think, with some confidence is that ever since we've had a Defense Department instead of a War Department, we have not decisively won a war. Not to disparage any of the people that fought in those conflicts.
91, that was pretty clear cut.
Yeah, that was yeah. So here's all I really wanted to say about this. Seeing fat soldiers is not just bad for the morale of the Army, or the armed services rather. It's bad for Americans' morale. It reduces their ease of sleep at night, knowing that the wall of living breasts, as it was described in the Civil War trilogy by Shelby Foote, protecting the Confederacy, I think it was, doesn't exist anymore. And certainly makes our adversaries much more likely to miscalculate and assume that this is the soft America that has gotten other countries into so much trouble in the past. One of the things that history shows us in this country, and it just makes common sense, is that the people who make excellent battlefield commanders are poor politicians because they're so direct and so no nonsense. The people who get promoted in peacetime are the people who know how to do the glad handing and all of that stuff. So it's a cycle where you build up a great deal of brush and deadwood in terms of political admirals and generals who have come to the very highest level of command through their political skills rather than through their commitment to warfighting. And years ago, I said my dream would be to have a defense secretary who was fresh out of the military at the operational level, who knew what we needed today and knew what the problems were today, and invade this temple and throw out the money changers. And that's exactly what happened. And I simply can't believe my eyes. This business of all of a sudden looking at the number of transgender people in the military and saying these people have mental illnesses, and to the point here, to the real point about the transgender issue, just for a quick moment, is not many people know this, but if you are transgender in the United States military, you are non-deployable. You are non-deployable by definition. You cannot be deployed to a combat zone if you are a transgender in the United States military. So why are you in the military? Well, so many of them are in the military either for the taxpayers to pay for the operation, or because they, I'm tired of seeing people in uniform putting down the country. I'm tired of seeing people in uniform making TikToks. You have a right as a free citizen to do whatever you want to, but you don't have a right to do it in uniform. All of this stuff is happening before our eyes. In addition to which, we're seeing ICE raids in Los Angeles. We're seeing National Guard arresting Antifa in the heart of Portland, Oregon. We're seeing the kind of very, very difficult, politically, what I thought was politically impossible is happening on a daily basis now. This is the great experiment. And if we had not won the 2024 election, I really think that this simply would not, that we wouldn't have another chance. We're going to find out how it turns out, but I tell you one thing, I feel a whole lot better about the ability of our military to win a war and keep American civilians safe underneath this tattooed, supposed drunkard, fast-talking guy who gets up at 5:30 in the morning and then runs 10 miles with the troops in freezing weather in shorts and, in a T-shirt. I feel a lot better with that guy in charge than I do with, people like General Milley, who doesn't understand things like white supremacy, but he's willing to learn. So go for it, Pete. Shake and rattle and rock and roll, and let's get the dead wood out of an organization that should be primarily focused on making the bad guys dead. For Steve Green and Scott Ott, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on Right Angle.